Tuesday, we've got Frank Klose with us, and we're Phillies Mailbag. But I'll start off by asking you, Frank, if Cameron Rupp, because that was a heck of a hit, if he has to miss time, what do the Phillies do to replace that spot?
Well, it's kind of a funny time for that question to be asked, because no sooner did I hit publish to my original mailbag than the Phillies released J.P. Arancibia, who was at AAA. So Arancibia would have been the logical choice, but the Phillies granted him his release at his request. He only got into 12 games because Andrew Knapp was doing all the catching. He only was hitting 167, and that would have been the obvious thing for the Phillies to do. The whole reason the Phillies added J.P. Arancibia was kind of to be a veteran guy that could stay at AAA in case somebody gets hurt, and really, he wasn't playing, which was a problem for somebody like him. Kind of as a courtesy to the veteran, you might let him go upon his request. If I don't know if he had an official opt-out date, but they did grant him his release, so that makes the question so much more difficult. So now, what the Phillies did was they promoted Logan Moore to AAA. I wasn't sure. Gabriel Lino was at AAA last year for a while, so I thought it might have been him, but they decided to go to Logan Moore, who was the backup catcher at AA, because, of course, they have Jorge Alfaro at AA. And with those two prospects getting all the playing time, there really is no clear backup-type catcher hanging around in the minor leagues. So then I think what's going to have to happen with Rupp is they're going day-to-day, and we've seen that so far. They're going to see if they can squeeze by with Ruiz playing each of those games. And then if they think that they're going to need to get somebody else for a short amount of time, I actually think they might go and bring up Jorge Alfaro, not to play, but because he is on the 40-man roster right now, and he can be shuffled back and forth really easily.
And that would get fans excited. You know what that would do? That would get fans going right there to see Alfaro, a guy in that Hamels deal.
Well, I think it was like Aaron Altair a few years ago. If you remember that when Tony Gwynn died and Tony Gwynn Jr. was on the team, they found themselves in a situation where Aaron Altair was the only outfielder on the 40-man roster that they could bring up and just send right back. So Altair, he jumped way ahead of his schedule just to kind of fill in for a few days. And then when Tony Gwynn Jr. came back, then Altair went right back to the minors. So it might be a situation like that where it does the least amount of damage in the greater picture, which is trying to hold on to as many guys on your 40-man roster as you possibly can. Because if you add somebody like Logan Moore for a couple days or Gabriel Lino, I think it's ideal not to mess with the two prospects at AA and AAA. But if it's a situation where they just need some help for a few days, what they might do is they might add one of them, like probably Alfaro because he's on the roster, and then in a few days, without ever putting Cameron Rupp on the disabled list, and then probably activate Cody Asche when they're done.
All right. Speaking of Cody Asche, you transitioned right into Nick's question. He wants to know how soon till Cody Asche returns, and what's the roster move once Asche is back? Who goes?
Well, Cody Asche seems to be progressing pretty well. On Sunday, he had a couple hits at Class A Clearwater. He did pick up a home run in that at bat, which is a good sign. One thing with the oblique injury is getting that balance and getting your body nice and tight and with each other to be able to drive a ball. So that was a really good sign. So it looks like Asche could be coming up really soon. It kind of remains to be seen if they're going to try to have him play at another level before he comes up. I mean, all in all, he's played in 3 games now. He has 12 at-bats. He has a couple of hits, not many, but definitely a good sign that he did connect on that home run. And he's probably pretty ready to come up almost any time now. It just remains to be seen if they want to see him play at AAA for a few days just to get a little bit more competitive action. But when you start your rehab assignment, then the clock starts ticking, so he's got to be up soon. In terms of who goes, I think the obvious one is Emmanuel Burris. Burris has sort of been serving as a backup infielder / backup outfielder. The nice thing about Asche is that Asche can play some infield too if they need to. I don't think the Phillies want necessarily to be shuffling Asche back and forth. When Asche comes up, he probably ends up being the starter in left field to take over for what's, as we know, has been a revolving door this season. So he'll probably get a chance to start at left field like they had envisioned last season, and at the same time will serve as insurance. Now, David Lowe is also a left-handed hitting outfielder, but I think as we've seen with some of these games in recent days, the pinch hitting from Burris hasn't been that great, or any hitting from Burris hasn't been that great. So they might want to hang on to David Lowe because Lowe is an experienced major leaguer, and even though he usually will hit you 250, at least that's the major league bat that they could have off the bench.
Talk about Frank Klose, of course, 97.3 ESPN.com. The mailbag, you can send us mailbag questions at Frank Klose with a K, 973. Don't forget to check out more from Frank and the guys over at Philadelphia.com, part of Sports Talk Philly. And Dan wants to know, how much longer are the Phillies going to give Adam Morgan? I guess you could maybe also throw Eickoff's name in there. He's pitched good, but 1-6. You wonder if they're thinking of other options there as well before they start to think about somebody else.
Well, I think we need to remember what this season is supposed to be for the Phillies. This is supposed to be a rebuilding season. It's supposed to give these guys some experience. It's supposed to be when they sort of take their lumps. And it's kind of funny that the knee-jerk reaction we're getting on some of these pitchers after a bad start or two. Now, Morgan, he just pitched 7 innings against the Braves with 1 run, and everybody was all happy. Well, then he has 1 bad outing, and then now they're calling into question whether or not he should be on the team. So I think people just need to be patient, let these guys take their lumps, because if they don't do it now, when are they going to do it is kind of the big question. Because, you know, if you send them down to the minor leagues and they go back to dominating AAA hitting, what purpose does that really serve them in the long term? Because they're still going to have to come up and pitch to major leaguers, learn how to make those adjustments. And if you don't do it now, you're only hurting yourself for later, because this year is supposed to be about getting that full picture and seeing who you have, what they can do, and to simply have a knee-jerk reaction after somebody has a few bad starts, I think is kind of doing the organization a disservice for the long term. And even though Eickoff has that bad record, he has better than that. You know, he's had a few good starts, or a few starts where he's sort of fallen apart. Maybe the third time around the lineup. So I think there's definitely something there to work with, and it's better that you just do that at the major league, I believe.
Frank Klose is with us. The Phillies mailbag is open. Frank, you mentioned Aaron Altherr a couple minutes ago, and I know he can begin swinging a bat in 2 weeks. Now, last week, if I remember, you said you didn't think he'd be coming back as quick. Has the timetable changed on Aaron Altherr?
Well, the initial timetable they gave was 4 to 6 months. Now, when you leave for the season in March, so if you go 4 months, you're talking at the very, very earliest sometime in July, and then if it's the full 6 months, then you're talking September. So I think a lot will depend on how his wrist is reacting. I mean, just because he's swinging a bat doesn't mean he's ready to be in the lineup every day batting fifth. So it's kind of a tricky surgery to recover from. I know a lot of players in the major leagues have had trouble getting readjusted. I guess the most recent similar type surgery was Mark Teixeira. Now, granted, he's a lot older than Altherr was when he had, so really a lot of it will be how his wrist actually responds. So simply being able to swing a bat, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to swing a bat well. So I think they would rather err on the side of caution. If the rosters expand in September, I mean, that might be the ideal time, September 1st. But granted, if he's responding well to the injury, in June when he starts swinging the bat, and he's hitting at the extended spring training pretty well, well then maybe they start a rehab assignment and he's up a little sooner. But from swinging a bat to playing in game action and being able to play every day, that might not be the quickest transition. So I think if everything goes amazingly well, you're talking some point in July, and maybe even September 1st, because it might just make sense to wait until September 1st to have the expanded roster.
Frank, Phillies with 10 hits last night, but 9 of them were singles. Is it getting harder and harder for them to mask their lack of power and make it look like they do have an offense?
Yeah, it's probably a little discouraging for their young pitching staff to see night after night them not coming through with runners in scoring position, and hopefully that's something that the addition of Cody Asche will help a little bit. I mean, I know Asche hasn't been much of a hitter. He's been pretty consistently around the 245 mark for his career. So, but let's face it, it's better than what they've had. It certainly helps that Tyler Goeddel is really seems to be getting comfortable. You look at somebody like him who was kind of pushed to the major leagues ahead of schedule, like a lot of Rule 5ers are. So if you get to the point where Asche can give you a little something from the left side of the plate, Goeddel can continue to improve as time goes on, and things will start to fall in place a little bit better. But the Phillies are going to see a lot of Tommy Joseph coming up because heading into next week, the Phillies go to a 6-game series on the road, and they're going to be headed to Detroit. So there's going to be a designated hitter in a few of those games. So we know whether or not it's a righty or lefty that Joseph is going to have some steady at bats coming up. So hopefully all those things sort of come together to provide at least a little bit more offense.
Frank Klose, don't forget, if you have a question for next week's mailbag, send it to Frank at Frank Klose with a K, 973 on Twitter, Philadelphia.com. And, of course, that's all a part of SportsTalkPhilly.com. Frank, we will look forward to next week's mailbag, pal.
Thanks, guys.